All right, welcome in to week 9 of the college football season. Welcome into the Merrifield Sportsbook Show. I am Nick Burt, of course, alongside Matt Merrifield, Jade Coster, and Justin Walsh. Listen, this week, the board isn't great for picks. I know me and Matt have come to that agreement. I don't know if Jay or J Walsh have come to that, but listen, for us, this week, there's only one game that matters. It's big rivalry week for us. But Matt, we'll start with you first. I know you weren't there in person, but you did enjoy some 10 a.m. OHL hockey this morning. I don't even know if you watched, but it was school kids' day for the Sarnia Sting as they played the Flint Firebirds.
Yes, this was clearly a ploy done by the Sarnia Sting to take advantage of the Flint Firebirds this afternoon by playing a 10:30 local time a.m. puck drop. This is what happens when conference expansion just takes over. I'm just kidding. The Sting did lose in a shootout, or the Sting won in a shootout. The Firebirds fell 2-1 in a shutout. Disappointing performance, but currently I'm reading up on Georgetown basketball and to whether or not they will be able to beat a Big East opponent that isn't DePaul this year. So because this slate this week sucks, and I'm fully prepared for basketball season because I'm almost completely over with college football. Once Michigan State beats Michigan this week, I can coast into basketball season. So we'll see if Ed Cooley's the man or if he's a future Cavalier.
You know, Jay, speaking of future Cavaliers, that Ed Cooley was asked today if he is taking the job at with the Cavaliers at Virginia after, of course, Providence College basketball burner Simon Charles says he has already accepted the job. Just remember, the Calgorithm is come and gone, but Providence burners last forever. So, Jay, is Ed Cooley taking the Virginia job?
Well, I would think so. And also you can fix that program and actually have them score some points because they need a new fresh start from the 20-minute era. Even though you want a title with them, they need to start scoring some points. And Ed Cooley is the perfect guy for that. So I am ready for college basketball as well, to be honest with you. So.
And then Jay Walsh, will go to you. Obviously, college basketball season right around the corner. What are your thoughts on the Seattle Redhawks this season, their first season in the WAC? I think. I don't remember. They won the CBI last year.
It's going to be absolutely electric. All the best teams play in the CBI. I think that's a very known fact. And, it's an absolutely I'm more than anything, as Matt and Jay said, I'm just ready for the college basketball season to start. And that absolutely has nothing to do with the fact that my record in our betting for college basketball last year was significantly better than my college football betting. But yeah, I'm ready for the season to start, ready for MSU basketball to get into full swing and ready to see what happens.
Yeah, college basketball, we are 2 weeks away, I believe, from first tip. It will be a week and a half by the time this gets posted, something around there. But we'll get back into the college football since that is what you are here for. Last week, it was an interesting week of football. I think kind of everything went as expected except a few games here and there. I feel like we kind of all felt like Georgia was going to win that game or at least had a good chance of it. I don't think it was expected to be, that controlling throughout. Alabama, this team is just, who knows what this team is. So without further ado, Jay Walsh, will go to you because it is time to look at how those, games have affected the J Walsh rankings.
All right. It was definitely very interesting trying to rank the teams this week. A lot of teams that are kind of on equal playing field, so kind of hard to put some ahead of the others. But without much further ado, let's get into it. As previously, the top group of 5 team in the country is Boise State. We do have an opportunity if Navy takes down Notre Dame, there may be a shakeup in the top group of 5 team going into next week. So we will see what happens. But as of right now, it is Boise State. Coming in at number 15, again, we have Clemson. And then number 14, as was just shown, we have new to the rankings, Kansas State, coming off a nice victory in Morgantown against West Virginia. Number 13, we have Texas A&M. Number 12, we have Notre Dame. And then number 11, we have the Hoosiers of Indiana, coming dangerously close to a top 10 ranking. They are coming off a nice victory over Nebraska. Then coming in at that number 10 spot, we have LSU. And then number 9, we have all the way down from number 1 previously, we have Texas. That was kind of a really eye-opening loss. Obviously, Georgia is Georgia, but I think Texas really kind of got exposed in terms of people are starting to, and I'm one of them, kind of starting to understand like Texas really hadn't played anybody, and yet we were all kind of coronating them as the best team in the sport. So they kind of got exposed a little bit, but they still got a shot. Coming in at number 8, we have Tennessee off the big win at Alabama. Number 7, we have Miami. Number 6, we have BYU. And number 5, we have Iowa State. And right about here is where the cutoff, I think, is between the top teams and kind of everyone else. The top 4 are pretty indisputable at the moment. Number 4, you have Ohio State. Number 3, you have Penn State. Number 2, you have Georgia. And then number 1, of course, you have Oregon. So that is this week's edition of the J Walsh Rankings. Very curious to see what you guys think about it. I will open the floor. Actually, I will go through the matchups first. So we have in the 8-9 game going up against Oregon in the quarterfinal, we have Tennessee versus Texas. And then we have Penn State versus Boise State with the winner playing Miami. And then we have Ohio State and Indiana with the winner playing against Georgia. And then we have BYU and LSU with the winner playing Iowa State in the Sugar Bowl. So as I just said before, I will now open the floor up to you guys for your thoughts.
I guess I'll start. I think Clemson's way too low. I think, ever since that Georgia loss, they've been absolutely killing teams. I know they really haven't played a lot of, quality opponents, but every single team that they play, they've been destroying. And I think that offense has been really, really good. I think Kate Klubman has started to figure it out. We'll see how they do down the stretch because they have a tough game at Pitt coming up in a couple of weeks. We're going to learn a lot about Pitt in that game, but I think Clemson's a little too low. I would say I do agree with Miami there. I think you had Miami over BYU, I believe. I think Miami would go above BYU for now, just because you go into Louisville and you put up 52 points on a pretty good Louisville team on the road. They were a pretty popular upset pick last week, and they went in and beat their So I like Miami a little higher there, but other than that, I think it's pretty much set in stone. I do think this is pretty accurate. We're going to find out how Indiana plays without Curtis Rourke against Washington this weekend. That's going to be interesting to see. I agree with Indiana. They've been killing teams, so you can't really, I think that's a good spot for them right now. So that's really all I got right now. So.
And Matt and Nick, before you guys jump in, I just want to respond about the Clemson thing. I do agree that they do have an argument to be ranked higher. The reason they were ranked so low is among the teams of the top 15, they are kind of the one that doesn't really have a kind of statement win yet. They, as you said, aside from the opening season loss against Georgia, they really haven't played a ton of teams. They have opportunities, as you said, to get that kind of statement win, that kind of marquee win that will boost them in these rankings. But as of right now, I couldn't justify putting them over other one-loss teams simply because they don't have that marquee win just yet.
Mr. Walsh, I need, and this is for the entire committee here. Is Iowa State good? Are we sure that Iowa State is good at football? I asked Nick this before the show started. They haven't played anybody. Like they have the easiest Big 12 schedule I have ever seen. Even their non-conference, they beat Iowa by a single point. And I know the Cy-Hawk Trophy, highly respected. I respect the hell out of the Cy-Hawk Trophy. But let's call a spade here. Aiden Giles looked like prime Russell Wilson on Saturday night against the Hawkeye defense that isn't as good this year as years past. So we talk about signature wins. Iowa State doesn't have one, and they're going to have to wait until week 12 against Kansas State to get one. My only other thing, I think Texas is still the second best team in the SEC behind Georgia. I know they kind of laid an egg similar to what Georgia did to Alabama early in the year. Tennessee doesn't look very good. I guess they outplayed Alabama, but both those teams looked pretty putrid on Saturday afternoon at 3:30. So that would be my only other thing, is I think Texas should be a little higher, but that's my only thing. I don't know if BYU and Iowa State should be that high as of right now, but otherwise, I agree with Jay too. Clemson, I think, should be higher as well, but I reserve. We'll see how it plays out in the heading into November.
And I'll close it out. I have a major gripe with this because the first week we did the J Walsh rankings, there was a team that was in there. They got dropped down the next week because, for understandable reasons, kind of struggled against a bad team. And then this week they went out there and dominated, like completely controlled the game, and they're still nowhere to be found. That is the Illinois Fighting Illini. J Walsh, wearing the 1920s uniforms, which were absolutely incredible. I will not hear anything less. They eviscerated Michigan. They controlled that game start to finish. Why are they not in the top 15 here? They were in there 2 weeks ago. Is that 1 point win against Purdue really holding them down that much?
It is a little bit, but mostly it's because, honestly, in my opinion, and going based off of what Matt and Jay said, they tend to agree with me here. I just think the teams in front of them, namely Clemson, that number 15 team, honestly deserve it a little bit more. Illinois they played very well against Michigan, but honestly, I don't think Michigan's that good. I mean, their defense is solid, but their offense is really nothing special. And they played them at home. I mean, it's Clemson, Kansas State, Texas A&M, Notre Dame. These teams have all shown throughout the year that they are capable of playing with some of the better teams in the country and winning games against those teams. It's unfortunately Illinois just hasn't quite shown that yet. They are right on that cutoff line. I did think about putting them in, but I couldn't justify it over any of the bottom seeded teams. So if they get a couple more wins on the schedule, you will see them get back into these rankings. But as of right now, just could not justify putting them in over the teams ranked ahead.
Well, if nobody has any other things to say about the J Walsh rankings, J Walsh, we of course thank you as always for these incredible rankings because although we sometimes disagree, they are the definitive college football rankings. So let's get into this week's slate. We'll start out on Friday night with a game that could potentially very much affect the J Walsh rankings. It is Boise State, a 3.5-point favorite, traveling to Vegas, taking on UNLV. The over-under is 64.5. This feels like a huge game in the Mountain West, feels like a huge game for that fifth, automatic playoff spot. This game feels like it has huge implications. Now it's kicking off at 10:30. That at least it's not kicking off at 11 right after game one of the World Series. I mean, that's at least something. But Jay, we'll start with you on this one. This game, like I said, it feels like this could be a huge game, at least for the group of 5 teams, as we get into November for both sides.
Absolutely. I mean, this could be a game that defines who gets into that 12-team playoff. I mean, UNLV's had a really good season so far. They lost their quarterback. Obviously, the storyline in this game, everyone's going to be talking about Ashton Genty. I don't know. This is a tough spot for Boise State. You're going on the road against a pretty good UNLV team. UNLV is top 20 against the run. I want to keep that in mind here. I think that's important. Even though Ashton Genty is really good, I think UNLV's run defense is going to, play a factor in this game. I'm taking UNLV in the 3.5. It's going to be close. 3.5 points is just, I think, it's a little too much for a game like this. It's going to be really good. I do think UNLV can win this game, so I will probably I'm going to lean the under in the spot. I'm going to take UNLV. I think UNLV can actually pull off this upset and win at home.
J Walsh, we'll go to you next. For the Boise State side, this kind of feels like their last true test until a potential Mountain West title game. If they get through this, I obviously know you've had them in your J Walsh rankings each week, but do you think there's going to be no competition to get into that playoff most likely if they get through this game with a victory?
I wouldn't necessarily say that there won't be any competition simply because you have Army and Navy both right there. And both teams are undefeated as of right now. They both have an opportunity to play against Notre Dame, which is a high quality opponent. So if one of those two teams ends up undefeated, I do think that they get in over Boise State. But should those teams both lose even one game, I do think Boise State gets in because, as you said, after this week, they really are not tested again. There's a very good chance that they end the season 12-0 and get to the Mountain West championship game. So I would say in terms of this game, I do like Boise State here simply because I think obviously with all of the news circulating around Ashton Jency and the unbelievable season he's having. And as Jay said, UNLV has a very, very good run defense, best in the Mountain West, as Jay said, I think top 20 nationally. They are going to be trying very hard to stop him. I think Boise State gets it done through the air. I mean, they're middle of the road in terms of the Mountain West in passing yards per game, but the thing that I look at is UNLV is dead last in the Mountain West in passing yards allowed. They are really poor against the pass, and I think Boise State has a capable enough passing offense to get the job done. I'm going to take Boise State with the points here. And I do agree with Jay on the fact that I think the under is a good play here. That 64.5 number seems a little bit high to me, but I will take Boise State minus the 3.5.
And then Matt, we'll close out with you. I mean, we kind of looked at the Boise State side of that and looked at their schedule down the line. If we look at UNLV's schedule down the line, if they get out of this game, I mean, it's basically smooth sailing, it seems, up until a Mountain West title game. Of course, the last time we saw UNLV on a Friday night at home, it was their one loss of the season in a disgusting game against a disgusting university, which is Syracuse. But do you see them potentially getting on the fast track to the playoffs if they win this game?
I can see them. It's kind of tough. And the team I wanted to bring up for that last G5 spot or G6 spot now is Liberty has completely gotten wiped out of the conversation to Kennesaw State on a Wednesday night, which a loss to one of the only winless teams left in the FBS. I think the only team without a win left in the FBS would kill Liberty. But for UNLV, if they win this game, they do put themselves in a really good spot to make the college football playoff. I don't know if I would put them ahead of an Army or Navy, but they would definitely be right in stride for stride going down the stretch. But my one thing that we kind of have to look at is both these teams are really similar, even to the point of, like you mentioned, J Walsh, about the run defense for UNLV. Boise State's is just as good. I think they allow 1 or 2 more yards per game. And then on the flip side, the pass defense, both are quite awful at pass defense. Now, Boise State does have a passing attack. UNLV cannot throw the football whatsoever, even since Sluka left. They really struggle to throw the football. My last thing, and this is just a trend from this year, teams at home suck on Friday nights. Absolutely suck. I don't know why. You would think that would be the other way around, that short week travel, especially across the country or just in any scenario. And it hasn't been the case. And I don't have the number in front of me of what that record against the spread is. I'm actually interested to see because maybe that inclines me to place a few doubloons on this game. But I'm rocking with Boise because they have the best player on the field. Road teams have been really good on Friday this year. And even if it does come down to the passing game, I still like Boise State's quarterback and passing game much better than UNLV. Last UNLV thing, though, Ricky White, former Spartan, shout out Michigan State. He has, I believe, 3 block punts this year for UNLV, which is the most in college football. So just thought I'd throw that stat out there because Ricky White keeps doing big dog things, and his rookie receiving record will be broken by Nick Marsh on Saturday night.
And I kind of agree with everybody here. Matt, I really like the point you brought up about home teams on Friday nights have just kind of been god awful this year. Really, like if I'm just quickly thinking back, I think Oregon might have been the only one to win. At least the main games when they played Michigan State. I probably am forgetting a few of like the major games on Friday nights. So that's kind of excluding week 1 when like half the teams seem to play on Friday night. But Boise State, they have the best player on the field, Ashton Jeanty. That leads me to pick them this one. I actually kind of like the over in this game. Although it's going to be most likely a heavy running game, I still think like we get some points quickly in this one. I like the points to stack up. I like the over 64.5. So we'll move on to Saturday in another game that could very much affect the J Walsh rankings, whether it be a team moving up or a G5 team. And that is Notre Dame, a 12.5 point favorite against Navy. This game is at the Meadowlands. The over under is 51.5. J Walsh, will start with you on this one. Navy 6-0, obviously. It has been an incredible start to the season for them. But, things get real right now. They haven't faced anybody like Notre Dame this season, and they most likely won't face anybody like Notre Dame once this game is over. So it kind of feels like this is make or break for Navy.
It is. And, like you said, they are not going to play a team all year long that has the amount of talent that Notre Dame has. And it's going to be kind of a culture shock for Navy because, they have, as you said, they've gotten off to a 6-0 start. They've been playing very well, but this is a different ball game. And the problem for Navy is Notre Dame. The place where Notre Dame excels the most is their defense. Obviously, when you think of Notre Dame, you think of great defenses. Notre Dame, so far this year, is a top 15 passing defense and a top 30 running defense. I have a hard time seeing Navy keep this within 2 touchdowns. I'm taking Notre Dame minus the 12.5 here. I do. Again, I really like the under here, even at 51.5. I just feel like this is a game that could very easily end up being a 28-14 game or something like that. And I don't know that Navy has the ability to keep up with the superior talent that Notre Dame has. So I'm rolling with Notre Dame on this one.
Matt, we'll move over to you next. Obviously, for a team like Notre Dame, going up against triple option always is difficult, but given that Notre Dame seems to play at least one service academy every year, it's usually Navy, sometimes it's Army and Navy, sometimes it's Navy and Air Force, but still mixed. Do you think that gives Notre Dame a bigger advantage in this one compared to like if Navy was playing somebody like, I'll just say like Michigan State or somebody like that doesn't face the triple option, every year?
And right now I'm trying to look up their record in the Shamrock series, or I don't know if this game counts or not because it's technically not a home game for them.
Yeah. So because
they're playing Army. I know that.
Yeah. Since this is technically a Navy home game, because this is like a continual series, Navy never actually plays at home. They're always neutral, and then they'll go to South Bend, which whatever. But yeah, so this is technically not a Shamrock series game.
Okay. I feel like in this situation, and especially even now that Navy's ranked, Notre Dame, typically the games they don't show up for are the ones where you don't expect them to lose. And as of late, since they lost their game to Northern Illinois, they've kind of quietly taken care of business, starting off with that big win over Purdue. So I lean Notre Dame in this situation. I can't. I'm going Navy simply because I can't bet against the troops, and I strictly refuse to fade the United States military, as we kind of talked about last week. But it pains me to say Notre Dame's going to win this football game, but I would still take 12 is a lot of points, especially for what I think is going to be a low squad of running the football. My last thing, though, back to the Friday nights, 21 games have been played on Friday, excluding week 1. So we're not counting week 1 and week 0. So starting from week 2, we've had 21 Friday night games. Does anybody want to guess the home team's record against the spread?
I got no idea.
I'm gonna go 5-15.
Anybody else? Anybody have a record? No? Well, Jay, there's been 21 games, but you are still correct because they're 5-15-1.
Oh, well, there you go.
What a poll by Mr.
Shout out
Jay
to the
DeCoster. But yes, home teams are 5-15-1 against the spread on Fridays this year, which is absolutely insane. I guess I could look to week 1 because Michigan State didn't cover on Friday night, week 1. So that's 5-16-1 just for those keeping score at home. Colorado State didn't keep. Oh, that was a Thursday night game. Well, hold on. But we can keep talking. Jay, you can give your take on the Army-Navy game, but Friday nights have not been too kind to teams this year.
Yeah, I'd probably, you know what? I'm going to lean with you, Matt. We're not betting against the U.S. military because we support the troops. The shout out the football beat. We love our troops. Yes, exactly. Shout out Zach Sloat. I will take Navy in the points because why not? Navy's been good this year. But yeah, I do think Notre Dame's win this football game. I did just realize it was at a neutral site at MetLife. So yeah, I'll take Notre Dame to win, but Navy's going to cover. And yeah, I'd probably lean the under in the spot. Notre Dame's defense is really good this year. And two teams like to run the football, so I'm going to take the under in this game. So yeah, give me Navy plus the 12.5 though. That's just a lot of points.
Well, I mean, I'm somewhat known for making odd predictions. I mean, it feels like just a few weeks ago I said Washington State will make the playoffs if they run the table, and they lost like the next week. So that didn't happen. But I will say this. I think Notre Dame loses to one of the service academies this year, whether that be Army or Navy. I think they'll lose to one of them. I don't know which one, though, and I kind of don't think it's going to be this one. I honestly think Army is the better team out of the two. They just seem more complete right now. I hope the troops win. I never bet against the troops, but given that, give me Notre Dame minus 12.5. I don't trust this Navy team. I think they've had a somewhat easy schedule getting here. Now, of course, Army has basically had the exact same schedule, but I like Navy to. I wish I liked Navy to cover. That's what I meant to say. But give me Notre Dame minus the 12.5. We'll move on to the third game on our slate. It is LSU traveling to College Station to take on the Texas A&M Aggies. Texas A&M a 2.5-point favorite. Matt, we'll start with you on this one. Texas A&M kind of I think they're just doing what they need to do to kind of stay relevant. You're not hearing a lot about them. They're just handling their business, kind of like you said with Notre Dame after that Northern Illinois loss. They're kind of just handling business. They're not really doing anything great. But it feels like it is a major opportunity for Texas A&M to step right back on that national stage and say, hey, we're still in contention for the SEC here.
My concern with LSU is they played Ole Miss 2 weeks ago, which they won in a big game. They got up for it and they took care of business. And then they had Arkansas last week, went on the road, won another tough game. This is now a third straight tough game. And next week is Alabama, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
2 weeks. Or no, it is next week, I think.
Yes, yeah. Okay. 2 weeks? I believe it's. I thought it was next week. So that's a really tough stretch. And I feel like this is just a death spot in their schedule on the road at night in an environment that is really tough to win. And I know Notre Dame was able to pull it off in week 1, but A&M's really kind of found their stride a little bit slowly but surely. Public is all over LSU for some reason. We're following Mike Merrifield's rule. lower ranked team favored at home. Give me Texas A&M, and I feel very confident in that pick this week.
Jay, we'll go to you next. As Matt said, I mean, this is like the third straight week of tough games for LSU. You kind of have a little bit of a look ahead spot against an Alabama team, even though they aren't looking great. It's still Alabama. Do you think this is kind of the moment for Texas A&M to step up here?
Yeah, I have Texas A&M winning this game. I agree with Matt, and I agree with Mike. You always take the lower ranked team at home, especially it's at night. I think Texas A&M gets this done. They weren't able to get it done at night against Notre Dame. They're going to get it done here. LSU, I mean, look, they have some good wins on their resume. I still don't believe. I don't believe in that defense still. They're just kind of flawed in my opinion. I'll believe it when I see it. If they go into College Station and win, they're going to prove me wrong. I mean, you beat Ole Miss on, you were losing most of that game. You found a way to win at home. That's great. And you found a way to beat Arkansas on the road. But, this is a look ahead spot. You got Alabama next week. That's probably their biggest game of the season. And Texas A&M's been playing much better football last month. You killed Mizzou at home. Connor Wegman's back. I mean, their offense looks like it's in sync. They look better. So I'm going to take Texas A&M at home. I think that's the play.
Matt, did you have something you wanted to say? I saw your hand up, so I just figured I'd check back in with you before going to J Walsh.
I just wanted to add in that the Alabama game is in 2 weeks. LSU has a bye before going to take on Alabama. So we were both right technically. But just for the listeners that might not have the schedule in front of them and don't want to fact check us.
Thank you for that fact check, Matt. J Walsh, we'll go to you now. I mean, A&M, I mean, 6-1, I believe they are. I mean, the one loss to Notre Dame, which is a game. I mean, that was the beginning of the season. You can somewhat write that off, but also not really. I mean, they may be in a look-ahead spot to next week. Their big rivalry game against South Carolina. They play for a trophy. I don't know what it's named. But do you think Texas A&M gets it done at night at home in this one?
I do. This is kind of an interesting spot here because both of these teams have kind of been on similar tracks to start this year. I mean, they both suffered early season losses, and since then, as Matt pointed out with another team earlier, I forget who he was talking about, but they've just kind of quietly taken care of business since their early season losses. I do like Texas A&M in this one simply because as we said, it's a night game at Kyle Field. It's one of the toughest places to play in college football. It's going to be rocking. And 2, LSU has honestly, they've been relatively decent against the run this year, kind of middle of the pack in terms of the SEC. The thing I look at, Texas A&M running back Le'Veon Moss has had a pretty solid year, running for almost 700 yards to this point. Against AP top 10 ranked opponents, that's 2 games against top 10 ranked opponents at the time, against Notre Dame and Missouri. He has run for a combined 208 yards and 4 touchdowns in those games. So against a middle-of-the-road run defense against LSU, I think he has another big game. I think they get the job done. I'm taking Texas A&M minus the 2.5 points here. I would go with the over just because I do think that both of these teams are capable of scoring the football, and I think in an environment like that, especially Texas A&M is going to be kind of bolstered on that front. But my main play here would be to take Texas A&M minus the 2.5 points.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with everybody here. Texas A&M at home at night. Mike Merrifield's rule, lower ranked team favorite at home. I love it all. Give me Texas A&M minus the 2.5. We'll move on to the big game of the weekend. The game I think we're all somewhat looking forward to, but also really don't want to watch it because it may be just some of the most putrid football you ever watch. It is Michigan State traveling to Ann Arbor, take on Michigan. Michigan is a 3.5 point favorite. The line opened up at 7.5 for Michigan. And this thing has been cratering all week. But Matt told me before the show, like 75% of the money or something along those lines is on Michigan, which makes this make even less sense. This may be a disgusting game. Jay, we'll start with you. Disgusting football seems to be on tap this weekend on the Big Ten Network because, I mean, it's apparently not good enough for Big Ten Saturday night on NBC.
No, they rather put Penn State and Wisconsin, even though Wisconsin's actually okay. I mean, it's kind of a travesty because this game actually used to mean something, and now we're having a Big Ten Network with a team that can't throw a forward pass, and another team that has Cal Haladay starting as their linebacker. So, anyways, it's going to be ugly. I'd probably take the under at this point. But you know what? Fuck Michigan. Michigan State's winning on Saturday night at the Big House. And, yeah, that's my thoughts. Plus the 3.5, 4.5, wherever you get it. Charles just can't turn the ball over. He's actually been playing a little better. He played well on Saturday night. You're seeing the arm talent. It's there. He just needs to cut the turnovers. The running game is there. The defense, against this Michigan offense, this defense better be able to stop them. I mean, if not, then we got problems. But Michigan State will win on Saturday night. Book it. Let's go.
J Walsh will go to you next. Michigan, Will Johnson, questionable, I believe. They have not named a starting quarterback. Sharon Moore is blocking media members on Twitter. Is the world crumbling around Ann Arbor right now?
So I may not be the best person to ask about this simply because I absolutely detest everything having to do with Michigan, but it kind of seems like it is a little bit. Their best player is clearly disgruntled at the moment, and injury or not is kind of having some effort and participation questions. I mean, as you said, the coach is having freakouts over Twitter, blocking everyone in sight. So I think that the program right now is a bit of a mess at the moment. And that combined with the fact that Michigan is bottom 5 in the Big Ten right now in pass defense, combined with the fact that Aiden Childs has been playing much better lately. And we have our receiver room getting back to full health, and with the fact that Will Johnson is in fact questionable for this game. I do like Michigan State in this game. I have this pick in my parlay. I usually don't like to bet on my teams, but I think that this is a prime spot simply because these are two programs that are on different trajectories right now. MSU is kind of slowly making their way upward, and Michigan is kind of starting to go into a bit of a tailspin right now. So with the Michigan offense being as bad as it is and the Michigan pass defense being a little bit suspect, combined with MSU playing better and all the questions surrounding the U of M program, I like MSU. I like MSU plus the 3.5 here. And I think I really don't like that number 40.5 because this could easily be a game that hits the over. I would take the under simply because I don't know that Michigan can score enough to make that a thing. But I could see this game potentially getting to the over, but the main pick here is Michigan State plus the 3.5.
And then Matt, we'll end with you. You obviously have the fraud con. I'm coming up with this. Are we on Tunnel Con 1 this weekend for another tunnel fight? It's a night game in Ann Arbor. One tunnel, one very small tunnel. Are we going to have issues on Saturday night if Michigan State wins this game?
Well, no, because Michigan State will be staying on the field. So therefore, Michigan will have all the time in the world to get the hell off and head back to God knows where in Ann Arbor. But I can't remember if I was talking about this on air or off air on Sunday on the Green and White Report. Shout out WDBM East Lansing, 11-1 every Sunday. But I can't remember if it was on air or off air. If I said how cooked was this program last year, what happened, that we forget that the tunnel situation was just 2 years ago and Michigan State hasn't been back since. Like, that was a big deal, even though it really wasn't. And just Michigan media kind of pushed whatever they wanted to push. Michigan State before, I was reminded by the Devin Bush incident at, what was it, 2018, where he tore up the logo before the game. And now both teams were at fault in that situation because both teams wanted that to happen. But let's not act like Michigan doesn't instigate shit all the time. But for this game, I was lucky enough where I placed my wager on it at plus 6.5 before the line dropped down to 3.5. If you got it at 6.5, good for you, because that's where you want it. Because I have no idea. Like you said, J Walsh, 3.5 is a sucky line. Now, I still think State, even if they lose, keeps it within a field goal. If it falls to 3 or lower, I don't touch it at all. I think the half a point is going to make a big difference, even though I do think State's going to win. It's going to be like a 20-9 final. It's going to be gross. The magic number is 2 turnovers. If Michigan State turns it over twice, they lose. If Michigan turns it over twice, they lose. If both teams somehow don't turn it over multiple times, I think State still wins, because if Will Johnson's not playing, Nick Marsh, Montori Foster, Jack Felling should all have half decent days. And especially if that offensive line continues to play well. So I'm feeling much better about Michigan State's trajectory heading into the game as opposed to Michigan, especially because State has nothing to lose. They're going in house money. They win this game, they're probably going bowling, versus Michigan, who, if they lose this game, no bowl game, more than likely, based on the schedule they have left. So this is a little bit of pressure. The pants might be getting a little quenched with Sharon Moore on that sideline on Saturday night.
And I mean, I don't remember who I mentioned it to. It may have been to you, Matt, but it was after the Illinois game is when I took a look at the schedule for Michigan remaining. I'm like, this weekend's it. Like, if they don't win, they're not going to a bowl game, period. They have one win left on their schedule, and that's Northwestern. They're not beating Oregon. They're most likely not beating Indiana. Depends on a Curtis Rourke situation. They're most likely not beating them. And they're not going into the horseshoe and winning against Ohio State. There's zero chance that's happening. There's 1% chance. There's no 0% chances in college football. But like, this is do or die this weekend. Does that light a fire under them? I honestly don't know. I don't know if they're excited to have the possibility of playing in the Game Above Sports Bowl or whatever we've renamed the Quick Lane Bowl at Ford Field. Because that's 100% where they'd be going if they make a bowl game. I want to believe in Michigan State. If the team we saw against Iowa comes out, they are winning this game 100%. Like Matt said, it's about turnovers. Let's figure out the turnovers. If we don't get a ton of turnovers, I think Michigan State has a good opportunity to win this game. I'll go quickly around the room. So, Jay, I'll start with you again. Who do you think starting for Michigan on Saturday at quarterback?
Who knows? Probably Tuttle, but who knows? They probably just run out Orgy. I'd probably go Jack Tuttle, even though he needs to start. He needs to go apply the jobs on LinkedIn.
J Walsh, who do you think starting?
So I think this game could be a lot like the games of a couple years ago, where Michigan kind of flip-flops back and forth between quarterbacks when they had Cade McNamara and J.J. McCarthy. I think the starter actually will be Davis Warren, I think. But I think we do see a healthy amount of Alex Orji in as a kind of change of pace running game option. But I think the starter will actually be Davis Warren, because I think Michigan, the program and the fans, have kind of come to realize that Jack Tuttle is not that guy, considering he was the backup for Michael Penix at Indiana and is older than I am. So I think Warren will get the nod here. I think he'll get a chance. But like I said, I think we see a decent amount of Alex Orji in this game as well.
And then, Matt, to finish up with you, who do you think starting on Saturday?
I believe it's going to be Alex Orji that leads the team out, even though I am still of the belief that Michigan, if they want to be most effective, should take one out of the page of Dakota high school football in my junior year and just run the football, run the Wildcat with 3 running backs. Don't even attempt to pass. Just it truly worked. It did work that year for Dakota until didn't in the playoffs, and they pissed away a 9-point lead with 6 minutes left to Sterling Heights Stevenson. I promise you, if you do it right, it works. I mean, ask an Army and Navy, and you're basically a service academy already. So take one out of Greg Bauer's book at Macomb, Dakota, Sharonan. Run the triple option if you know what's good for you. But Alex Orji will probably leave this team out on the field, and that's a win for Michigan State. So,
well, given that, we'll go into our committee picks, but of course, right before that, we got to take a look at the standings. I'm camping up there at the top. I mean, I haven't moved in like months. It feels like I'm 26-18 with a 59.1% win percentage. Matt, you sit in second, 27-25, 51.9% win percentage. And then the bottom two. These two were separated by 0.1% this week. Jay DeCoster, you still sit in third, 22-25. J Walsh, if you didn't tell me that you messed up your rankings, you would have been in third, but you are 21-24. 2-6 in your locks. I 2-6. And you are a 46.7% win percentage. I mean, we'll address the elephant in the room quickly. 0-4 on locks last week between all of us. I mean, what are we doing, guys? Like, absolutely disgusting. Like, we are supposed to be helping the people, not hurting the people.
Matt,
I'm not gonna lie. Go ahead,
Matt.
Jim.
I was gonna say, Matt. May I ask how the Green and White Report picks did on last Sunday? I actually don't know because I didn't hear it. So
this week, like this last week,
yes,
not great. It was okay. It was. We went 5-7 as a group. Jack David went 0-3. Joe Dez and I both went 1-2, which we were due for regression because we hit parlays the last 2 weeks. But Oscar Henderson actually went 3-0 and saved our ass. So he's due for a letdown this next upcoming week. But even after going 1-2, I'm still in first place at 15-4, 16-4, something like that. So on the season, but it was a tough gambling week for as a whole this last week. So
I would just like to say that, given my proclivity for losing my locks of the week, I may start using that to my advantage to pick teams that I hate as my lock of the week, just so I can watch them lose. So I may be instituting the J Walsh lock of the week curse at this point, but we'll see if we can get a rebound first.
Well, let's get into our picks. I will start off as always. As I am top of the leaderboard, 2-3 last week. We're looking at 5-0 this week, hopefully. 5 picks as always. Let's get into it. Indiana -6.5 against Washington. Obviously, College game day is going to be there. No Curtis Rourke because of a thumb injury. Washington's still not good going across country to what I believe will be another sold-out Memorial Stadium. Love Indiana in this spot. I was surprised it's under a touchdown for them. Give me Indiana -6.5. This may be a trap. I'm falling into it. Whatever. BYU +1.5 at UCF. I don't know why, but it is what it is. Gus Malzahn. I know Matt is very much out on Gus Malzahn. KJ Jefferson, I don't even think starting anymore. I mean, it's just it's oh no disaster at UCF right now. Give me BYU, and they're a top 10 ranked team, and they're not a favorite here. Again, it's a trap. Whatever. UTSA -7.5 at Tulsa. UTSA, I mean, they haven't been what they were the past few years, but Tulsa is awful. Give me UTSA here. Go north of the border. Give me Saskatchewan -3.5 versus Calgary on Saturday night. Need a win plus Montreal shenanigans to get the number 1 seed in the West. Probably not happening, but give me Saskatchewan -3.5. And then close it out, Washington State -14.5. They travel to Snapdragon Stadium to take on San Diego State, the Aztecs. The Aztecs are awful. Give me Washington State -14.5. I mean, Washington State still very much can control the table and finish out 11-1. They won't make the playoffs, but they can still finish with 1 loss. So given that, those are my 5 picks for the week, including one north of the border. So Matt Merrifield, you are up next.
Well, I have 2 stats to share with the group. One is a follow-up on the Friday night games for home teams, including week 1. Teams are 7, 19, and 1 against the spread at home this year on Friday nights, which is disgusting. Absolutely horrific. The other stat I want to share is that Michigan State in their last 14 games, coming off an upset win in conference play, is 1-13 against the spread. So not looking great for the whole Michigan pick, but thought I'd share. Maybe reverse psychology. Somehow Michigan State reverses the trend this weekend. Just thought I'd share. Don't want to bring the vibes down too low. I also did look to see the numbers of, difference between home teams against the spread, away teams against the spread total this year, underdogs, everything split like 51-49%. Like this year has been an insane year for Vegas. So if you're demoralized out there, don't be. This has been a really tough season for picking college football, folks. But anyways, let me get into my parlay. I hate this week. Absolutely hate it. My first pick at noon on Saturday afternoon at noon, I'm taking Ole Miss and Oklahoma over 49. Ole Miss coming off a bye after their tough defeat in overtime to LSU. Oklahoma fired their offensive coordinator. We all know Ole Miss can put up points when they want to. I don't think they'll have any issue. And I think Oklahoma's offense gets a little bit of a jolt. I think the change in play calling can make a difference. And 49 for this team, for these two teams, they do if they have plenty of offensive talent when they're playing right. Give me Oklahoma and Ole Miss over 49. The picks are bad this week when I'm taking an over-under pick because I hate picking over-unders. Next up at 3:30, I'm taking Eastern Michigan -3 at Akron. Akron sucks. Go fly, Eagles fly. That's the logic there. I am taking Texas A&M -2.5 versus LSU, as we kind of talked about. So Mike Merrifield rule, under lower ranked team favored at home. Give me Texas A&M at night in Aggie land. Also at night on Saturday, give me Arizona -3 versus West Virginia. That tells me this game is a coin flip between two teams that are struggling in the Big 12, and Arizona's having a letdown of a season. West Virginia's not very good at 3-4, and they've lost some ugly games the last couple of weeks with some tough opponents, both at home. They lost to Iowa State and Kansas State the last 2 weeks at home. Now they have to try and get up and go on the road to still a very talented Arizona team. Give me the Wildcats to bounce back and get a win and cover the 3. And then my last pick, my lock of the week on Saturday night, give me Duke +12 versus SMU. Both teams are 6-1. Duke is surprisingly pretty good this year. They're not great, but they've played pretty well other than their loss at Georgia Tech by 10. They had a kind of a close game last Friday versus Florida State at home, but they've played really well. They like to keep games close with whoever they're playing. At home, public is all over SMU for some reason. The Mustangs are due for a letdown at some point. They're undefeated in ACC play. Got to come across country after a win at Stanford last Saturday. They were at Louisville the week before, or 2 weeks before, because they had the bye. That's a lot of travel for this team. They have a game against Pitt next week, against an undefeated Pitt team as of right now. This is a perfect look-ahead spot. Give me Duke +12, Manny Diaz to cover the 12 at home against the Mustangs. So those are my 5 picks for the week. God have mercy on my soul.
Jay, we'll move on to you. What are you going to do to extend your 0.1% lead right now in third place?
Well, I feel like I think I have been like 3-3 for the last, a month or so. So I need to get a winning record going here in order to catch up. So I got 5 picks here. Hopefully I do agree, Matt, this board sucks. I don't have a lot of confidence in these picks, but let's ride. We're going to go UCF BYU. I'm going to go UCF -1.5 here. It's at the bounce house. BYU is in a trap spot here. I know UCF isn't very good. Gus Malzahn it's been a disastrous year for them. BYU is traveling across the country. They almost lost to Oklahoma State. It was kind of a miracle that they pulled that off last week at home against a bad Oklahoma State team. I think BYU loses this game. I will take UCF minus the 1.5 at the Bounce House in Central Florida. Texas A&M, this is my lock of the week. I like Texas A&M minus the 2.5. I think they get it done at night. LSU's been kind of getting away with, the last few games. They've been I know they've been playing solid football, but a lot of those games have been close. I think LSU at home, it's a tough spot, or LSU on the road, it's a tough spot for them. I will take Texas A&M minus the 2.5. I'm going to go UNLV plus the 3.5 at home, the Friday night spot at home against Boise State. I do think that running game, that rush defense plays a factor like we talked about. I'll take UNLV plus the 3.5. We're going to go to Penn State, Wisconsin. I like Penn State minus the 6.5. I understand this is a look-ahead spot for them. They got Ohio State at home in a couple weeks. I know it's a look-ahead spot for them, but I mean, let's be honest. Wisconsin's not very good. I know it's at Camp Randall. They're starting that backup quarterback. I mean, Wisconsin's last 3 games, they played Rutgers, Purdue, and Northwestern. All those 3 teams are one of the worst in the Big Ten. So I'll be taking Penn State minus the 6.5. I think they get it done and cover that 6.5 point spread at Camp Randall. And then for the last spot, Washington State, San Diego State. I agree with you, Nick. I will be taking Washington State minus the 14.5 at Snapdragon Stadium. San Diego State's really bad, and Washington State, I feel like it's just been a cover machine this year. They've just been rolling teams, so I will be taking Wazoo in that spot. So those are my 5 picks. Hopefully we get a winning record this week because we need it.
And J Walsh, we'll close out with you. One final parlay for this week. What's getting you out of the basement this week?
We had a decent week last week. Went 3-2. Got into the positive for the week. Hoping to build on that. I know you guys said that you really don't like the slate. I do like the picks that I've got on here. I feel pretty good about them, which of course means I'll probably go 1-4, 0-5 this week. But we ball. So without further ado, my first pick is Indiana minus 6.5 against Washington. I really like this pick simply because Washington is not good and Indiana has been absolutely steamrolling people. And I mean, I know that they're going to be without Curtis Rourke in this game, but Taven Jackson filled in for him in the last game and honestly looked very good. And the top part of the Indiana offense is their running attack anyway. They have a great committee. They have 3 very solid running backs. I think they're just going to run all over the Huskies. I like Indiana minus the 6.5 here. My next pick, I've got Ole Miss minus 20.5 against Oklahoma. This pick is another one. If it wasn't all the way up to 20.5, I would honestly have made this my lock of the week simply because Ole Miss had their bye week last week. They've had 2 weeks now to sit and think about what they want to do coming off that LSU loss. Oklahoma's not a very good team. I think Ole Miss is going to come out angry, and I think they're going to absolutely blitz Oklahoma. So I really like Ole Miss in this spot. My next pick, I have Texas Tech and TCU over 66.5. Both of these teams are very capable on offense, and neither of them are very good on defense. So that's a recipe for a lot of points. And I mean, my golden kind of rule of the last decade or so of watching college football is Big 12 teams don't really play defense, and TCU and Texas Tech both fit that category. They both have fit that category for some time. I like the over in this game. My next pick, and it is my lock of the week, I am rolling with Matt Merrifield here, going with Eastern Michigan minus 2.5 against Akron. It is at Akron, but as Matt said, Akron is really, really bad. So I like Eastern Michigan in this spot. Chris Creighton is one of the most underrated coaches in the country. He's really built Eastern Michigan into a competent program, and I think they go into Akron and take care of business. And then my final pick, as we already discussed, Michigan State plus 3.5 at Michigan. Not going to get too in-depth because we already talked about it, but Michigan, terrible on offense, not what they have been on defense. I think MSU gets the job done. So there are my 5 picks. I'm hoping we can get a 4-1 or God bless even a 5-0 week here to get me back into the standings here a little bit. So hopefully we have a good week.
Well, those are the committee picks for the week. I actually don't think I mentioned it, but my lock is BYU plus 1.5. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens with it, but that is my lock. So I'll just open up the room just before we close out. If anybody's got any parting words for the week, Matt, I mean, congrats on your fantasy win. I know we talked about that last week, so congrats on that. Real good win for the Piscataway Platypus. So
it was a great win. It was just what we needed to get us back on track. And best of luck to the Eugene Beavers the rest of the way, sir.
Well, it's very kind of you. So if does anybody else have anything they'd like to mention before we get out of here for this week 9?
Baseball needs a salary cap.
Wow, I completely agree.
That's all.
Fun times, baseball. Funny game. Very funny game. Yeah. Yeah, I got no other things. So we'll just wrap it up there. So thank you so much for watching the Merrifield Sportsbook Show. Thank you guys for joining as always today. It's always incredible each week. Next week, we're into November, which is insane, which means there's only like 5 weeks left of the regular season. Also insane. But I mean, hey, we're getting closer and closer to, what should be an entertaining playoff season with the expanded playoffs. But we don't want to look too far ahead because we still got like 5 weeks of regular season football to go. So thank you so much for watching this episode of the Merrifield Sportsbook Show. If you just stumbled across it, click like, click subscribe, tell anybody you know about it. I feel like I'm saying it every week, but by the time you see this, Tottenham will have played AZ Alkmaar tomorrow, which will be yesterday in the Europa League. Hopefully they get a win there. So check out Top the Perch for that one. But if you love your college football, stay tuned right here to the Merrifield Sportsbook Show. So for Matt, for Jay, for J Walsh, I'm Nick Burt. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you again next week for another episode of the Merrifield Sportsbook Show.